Right, so we're back. Episode 6 of Don't Mess with Jim. We're in Edinburgh, we're in a new spot, and with a new man, a good man. His name's James. Welcome, I should say. Thumbs up, got a thumbs up. So he'll be slightly nervous on episode 1 for him, episode 6 for me. But yeah, end of the season. Yes, it is. It's the end of the season, thankfully. I'm very tired, not just from a busy rugby season. Did a triathlon at the weekend. Don't know if you knew. Yeah. What? Well, not great. Not great. Did not go very well at all. So I say it was a triathlon. It was a sprint triathlon. Sprint triathlon being a 750 metre swim, 21k bike, road bike. So you're not on a static bike, which I'm used to, and a kind of 5.5k run. Did it in a place called Blenheim Palace down in Oxford to raise awareness for a good friend of mine's foundation, the Matt Hampson Foundation, the Get Busy Living Centre. If it wasn't for him and it wasn't for doing it to raise awareness, I would have stopped halfway. I was absolutely fucked. Just underestimated it. Just underestimated, one, how hard open water swimming was. Temperature was fine. Goggles steamed up. I was on my mate's road bike as well. First time I've ever been on a road bike and wore the cleats or whatever they call them. So it wasn't great. I didn't enjoy it. It took me an hour and 50. I was literally, as I was doing it, I was aiming for an hour and 20 and then an hour and a half, and I thought, fuck it, I just need to finish it. So an hour and 50, I'm disgraced but with myself, with how I would have looked doing it. I had people cheering me on in the last bit of the run where I was struggling to run, as you might have seen through the Instagram video that I put up. It was embarrassing, but I finished it, and it's given me appetite to go again and basically go back next year and try and break the hour and a half mark. Don't know if I can do it. Don't know if it can be done, but I'm going to try. And that was on Saturday, which was the final of the Gallagher Premiership. And as we know, Saracens won. And we spoke about it last week in terms of me thinking Saracens would win comfortably. And a lot of people said that Saracens would win comfortably. But it was less than comfortable, I should say. I actually watched it in a McDonald's car park. Classy. Rock and roll on my iPhone, like this. Thinking, what the hell has my life come to after the triathlon? So I didn't get the full picture until I rewatched it back on Monday, but Exeter were brilliant. I think when you look at it, and again, I've spoken about it before, I think Exeter deserve to be crowned champions. And James, you work in the Pro 14 trying to unbreak the Da Vinci Code that is the Conference A, Conference B. The Premiership for me is a simpler concept. Even now, obviously with the playoffs, top 4, first place 4th, second place 3rd, top 6 qualify for Europe, 7th could be up for debate depending on the other leagues. I think Exeter deserve to be crowned champions. They won the Premiership. It's a slog. It's a marathon. It's not down to one game, I don't think. I think it needs to be down for the season, but it's not. And anyway, they obviously went into the playoffs, and again, I'm going off on a rant because I don't like that there is playoffs. But you're up against Saracens, the best team in Europe because they're European champions, arguably the best club team in the world. I didn't think they stood a chance, but to be fair to Exeter at the weekend, that was the best performance they could have put in, I think. And we speak about it all the time. Saracens have just got world-class players. And, I think the Saracens were 9 points down maybe. They could have been 11 points down. And even I'm thinking, they've lost. I think Saracens, Exeter are going to go on to win it, fair play. But class players just turn up, don't they? Jamie George, talk about class players. We talk about the Vunipolas. We talk about Alex Good recently, Farrell, Atoji, all these players. Jamie George is obviously in that bracket of class players. His performance at the weekend was sensational. And his try that Billy popped to him close to the try line was the one that probably secured them the victory in the end in terms of the momentum swing. Talking to Jamie George, I was thinking about this, and again we were talking about it on the podcast. England captain. A lot of people say that if England are lacking anything, it's a little bit of leadership. And I think with obviously Dylan Hartley coming towards the end of his career now, there's talk of him being fit for the World Cup. Is he going to be captain? I can't see it because for me, Jamie George is one of the best hookers in the world. When Farrell's captain, England just struggle a little bit, I think, with leadership. And I think what Jamie George brings, and we've seen that in recent weeks, we've seen that obviously on the Lions tour a couple of years ago. We've seen it with Saracens now. He's great in front of the camera, doing the media. His performances warrant a starting place, hands down, for Saracens, for England now. I think if you're looking for a captain, for me, middle of the scrum, hooker, he's involved in everything, plays like a back row, can kick, did a little chip kick at the weekend, but he's a good guy as well, and I think that that's so important. So I think that if England want to do anything going forward, I think, in my opinion, and probably in a few other people's opinion, they should look at Jamie George as captain. But another big shout out to Saracens, my old club. They are on a roll. Nigel Ray's come out this week and for the first time really spoken about his feelings on the negative press they've had in this season in terms of potential other clubs, people, chairmen, owners, coaches being jealous of Saracens and the Saracens way. I think there is an air of that. You know, if I didn't play for Saracens and I ended my career at a club where I didn't do as well or win the trophies that I luckily won with Saracens, I'd be jealous, of course. So big shout out to Saracens and Nigel Ray and everyone involved in that club. They've had a phenomenal few years, but this season to win the double against an unbelievable Leinster team and an Exeter team have been hands down the best team in the Premiership all year says a lot. So for them now going forward, best team in professional era, they have to be. You know, you've got your Leicesters and Wasps, obviously, who did really well and done similar things in terms of winning championships, in terms of the backbone of their team, playing internationally for England. But for me, the Saracens team, in the way that the game is at the minute and the style of rugby that they're playing, for me, the best team of our generation. Right, so that brings us on to the news this week. There's not loads of news, and when you watch the news, it's not all good, is it? Most of it's negative. So when you're talking about news, not all the time is good. Most of the time it's not good. And this week, it ain't good. There's a couple of good things, but let's talk about a couple of the bad things. We'll start on the bad things. Today being Friday, RugbyPass have published an article about London Irish and Paddy Jackson, and there was a little bit of controversy around him going to London Irish, the backstory of him being at Ulster. He was in court, charged with rape and with Stuart Olding as well, another player that's now moved from Ulster to France, was found not guilty, moved to Perpignan to play to try and reboot his career. Perpignan got relegated from the top 14. Naturally, Paddy Jackson sees a year's gone by, it's a chance for me to come back into the limelight, into a big club, London Irish being a big club, just been promoted into the Premiership, sign some world-class players as their 10, and people ain't happy. The fans aren't happy, and the news out today being Friday is that Cash Converters, one of their big sponsors at London Irish, have pulled out of sponsoring the team. Now, again, I'm not here to judge. I don't know the full details. I only know what was obviously publicised in the media, was publicised in the papers, that he was found not guilty. So therefore, he's an innocent man. Yet he's still got this controversy surrounding him. London Irish fans have said they're not going to come to the games. Sponsors are now pulling out. Oh, it's a messy, messy situation. I know, exactly. No, you're right. Like how one player can cause such a stir and such a controversy. And that brings me on to a player that has caused more controversy than I have ever seen in the game of world rugby. Faletau. Again, we don't want to talk about it, but we have to. Okay, we thought it was dead and buried. We thought he was gone. Not literally dead and buried, obviously. He was gone. He's not. He's not. So now it has come out again that he is suing the ass off Australian Rugby Union. I thought he weren't bothered. I'll tell you what, I got a quote here, so I'm going to read it out. I'm going to try and read it out. There's no pictures. So there was a quote. It must have been about around the first time when he did the social media post and got warned. Anyway, so after we talked, I told Rylene, is that how you say her name? Rylene Castle? She's the Australian Rugby CEO. Maybe I've got the name, pronunciation wrong. We'll call her Castle. A lovely looking woman. He said if she felt the situation had become untenable, that I was hurting Rugby Australia, which you have been, its sponsors and the Australian rugby community to such a degree that things couldn't be worked through, I would walk away from my contract immediately. So Faletau said that in a statement, that he would walk away, if he's caused upset or whatever. He ain't walked away. He wants to walk away with 10 million Australian bucks. That's what he wants to walk away from. And now, again, not a religious man. That's not very Christian in my eyes. £10 million, mate. And digging deeper into it, Australia are fogged. They've got no money. They've lost loads of money. You know, you look at the stadiums, the Super Games. They're not even half full. They're not even a quarter full. Now, it's going to, you know, all eyes are on what the world is looking now to see how this is resolved. And again, I've never passed judgment. You know, you've got to be careful on your opinions, freedom of speech. Can he? Can't. It's irrelevant. He's made his bed. He needs to lie in it now. And this is, in what we're seeing, it's money over morals. Like, you've come out and said that you're not going to do what he's doing now. You're just going to walk away. Well, you're not walking away. So, I mean, it's a messy situation. He's making it worse for himself. And it's like, I mean, it's a lot of money, obviously, his 3-year contract, but he knew what he was doing when he sent out that tweet. He knew that he was on his final warning. It wasn't the first time, it was the second time. So, I mean, we don't want to have to talk about it, but we are. And then off the back of that, his brother has now left the Waratahs. And Daryl Gibson, Gibbo, a good friend of mine when I was at Leicester, quoted as saying that Faletau's brother was grappling with divided loyalties, quote unquote. So the way that Gibbo's come out and said about how he's obviously gone into the office and said, I'm leaving, clearly doesn't mean that he's kicked the door down and says, I'm out of here. You know, family over, I mean, you know, the way that family is with the South Sea Islanders, they're close. And I say that because I think Faletau's from a Tongan descent. So it's messy. Australian rugby at the minute, especially going into a World Cup. You know, Checker, what must he be thinking? You know, Scott Johnson, who was with the Scotland Rugby Union, is now director of rugby over there. He's overseeing everything. Jeez, I tell you what, it is damage control. Get the shields up and stop the bullets firing, because they're coming, and they're coming fast. It's off the back of the Faletau situation. It's very different, but it's talking about Islanders. And I watched a documentary that Dan Leo narrated. I'm not too sure whether he produced it, but I know that it's something very close to his heart. It was absolutely class. It was called Oceans Apart, and it was about the kind of, there's only been one at the minute, but it's talking about the lifestyle and the traditional cultures that Islanders face when they come over to Europe or they go and play in the big leagues like the Super Leagues. So Rapini Kaukau, I think I've said his name right. Rapini Kaukau, yeah, kind of. My pronunciation's shocking. Anyway, my pronunciation's shocking. His footwork isn't shocking. He's arguably the best player to have ever played the game. Now, he is from Fiji. He's a Fijian winger, centre. He could play wherever. He could play prop if he wanted. Took the rugby world by storm. Got picked up and then got taken to play, pushed. He moved himself to Super Rugby. Highlanders maybe might have been one of his club in the Super game. Anyway, YouTube the clips of him. He is sensational. He then moved over to France. And I remember being documented. He was over in his team of France, middle of nowhere, obviously on a big contract, was going missing. There was talks of, you know, has anyone seen Rapini? No idea. So, and then he vanished. So he vanished off the face of the earth. I wondered where he was, and then time goes by, and then you forget him. Anyway, the documentary that's come out that Dan Leo narrates just gives an insight into what it is like as an islander, leaving your island, leaving your village, and going to the bright lights of big cities, you know, your Aucklands, you know, your Londons, you know, you go into the middle of France. And Rapini talks openly about when he turned up to play Super Rugby, he couldn't speak English. You know, didn't know much about money, felt very isolated, and it was a massive culture shock for him. And as we know, that the Islanders in the game, they are the best rugby players, hands down. You know, genetically, aesthetically, powerfully, they're everything you want in a rugby player. And I think sometimes you forget about the cultures, but if you get a chance, have a look at this documentary, Oceans Apart. You know, he speaks candidly about what it was like he turned to drink. I don't want to give too much of it away, but he basically was drinking heavily. He was sending all his money back to the island, his old village, or not his old village, the village that he's from, where he lived, to build houses for his family. Comes to retirement, gets sacked from his club in France, goes back there, got no money. And it's like he's not been advised at all. So I know Dan Leo is doing great things with the South Sea Islanders, with the union, with their unions, the federations or whatever. So that's brilliant. I don't want to give too much of that away. A lot of people ask me about the Islanders as well, though. Oh, what's it like playing with the Tuolangis or the Vunipolas? It's interesting. Interesting group. And firstly, I should say the South Sea Islanders, and you work with obviously Bill Matter at Edinburgh. They're brilliant human beings. Like, they're just so nice, very family orientated. A lot of them are religious. They're very quiet, like you mentioned, and it's how you recreate that environment for them. And what you find is a lot of them bring over their friends, they bring over their cousins, they bring over their family, other family members, to try and build that kind of network around them. And as you've seen at Edinburgh, obviously Bill signs, and then they start looking for other pockets of Fijian superstars, which I'm sure there's thousands of them out there. But I played at Leicester with the Tuolangis, and it was similar. It was interesting. I played with Henry, Freddie, Alessana, and there was a few others. There was Vi, there was Brian, there was Andy, and there was obviously Manu as well. And I'd be round the Tuolangis' house having a barbecue on the Sunday, sat back chilling. Jimbo, you just sit and chill. This was Henry was saying to it. Manu, get you beer. So Manu would go off and get the beers. I'd drink there, try and get up, and then try and put the beer in the bin. No, Manu would come and take the beer off me, put it in the bin, bring me barbecue food non-stop. So basically, Manu looked after me for years when I was at Leicester. Funny enough, went to played against him in a game against England. And it's one of them where, of course, I had respect for him. He's an absolute monster. But I'm seeing him as a little kid knocking about in his nappy. See him coming short at one of the breakdowns. I was right, Manu, he's having it. Little lad who I knew back in the day. Bring me my beer. Tried to obviously smoke him in the tackle. Sits me straight down on my ass. But yeah, I love the Islanders and the hierarchy thing that they've got. You know, for me, I used to look at Henry Tuolangi, who was the most feared player on the universe. You know, and his brother Freddie, he was the boss. I remember they had an altercation, and Freddie ended up beating Henry up at the club, and I was like, I'm sure Henry would beat Freddie up, but there was a hierarchy. Vunipolas, obviously Mako and Billy, again, lovely human beings, all about their family. Their cousins are local to where they are, and I always used to not give them stick, not me. I think everyone collectively, they go back, what I'm trying to say, they go back in the summer, they go back to Tonga, the Vunipolas they come back 3 stone heavier. Do you know what I mean? And we're like, what have you been up to? The condition coach like, what have you been doing? But then now I've dug deeper into it, it is classed as disrespectful. So if they go home and their mum feeds them up and they're eating 10 pigs while they're there and copious amounts of potato or whatever they have with their food, the food looks exceptional. They have to eat it. I don't think it's a choice. I don't think, oh, no, I can't. I've got training when I go back. And I never really understood that. So they come back 2 stone heavier, I'd be like, unprofessional. Do you know what I mean? But unbelievable players, but just a little bit unprofessional. Like, I'm not allowed to do this, I'm not allowed to do that. But now, understanding a little bit more of their culture, I think we should settle down a little bit. And it's great what Dan Leo's doing in terms of talking about their story and kind of putting an arm around them to kind of give them the best experiences around the world that they need. And obviously, they'll go out there and perform and light up the pitches. So last bit of news, we'll stick to rugby now, we'll get to it. Roundtree, Graham Roundtree's been confirmed as Munster's new forwards coach. We know Jerry Flannery's obviously leaving, apparently he's finishing from coaching, that's the rumour. It'd be a real shame, but Graham Roundtree, for me, I tweeted about it, awesome bloke, one of the most decorated coaches and players in the game. So I'm very, very happy for him. He's obviously coaching Georgia at the minute. He had a tough time in the last World Cup with England and the fallout in 2015 with them obviously being knocked out after the group stages. But yeah, I'm so happy for him. Obviously, iconic ears, but just a great bloke, and he's going to one of the biggest clubs in Europe. And looking at the way that Munster have gone, they probably need someone like that. They're having a change of guard. Obviously, Felix Jones is leaving as well, the backs coach. And then there's also talk, I don't know if it's confirmed, but RugbyPass put an article out, maybe it's just hearsay, but usually there's no smoke without fire, that Stephen Larkham is actually going to be joining them. So he obviously had a fallout with Checker, which was interesting before the World Cup, but Stephen Larkham comes with credentials, credibility and all that. So Munster, definitely, I mean, they're an amazing club. So they're not just going to get anyone, are they? So Graham Roundtree's come at a good time. And yeah, I think that Munster now, they've got Roundtree, if they've got Larkham as well, they'll be brilliant next season. Right, so that time of the week, everyone's been waiting for, the millions of you have been waiting for. It's the social media posts of the week. And again, there ain't loads. Everything's quieter now, but there are a couple of things. Rugby Memes on Instagram posted a question. Who wore it better? And there was a picture of Stephen McDonald, the former New Zealand fly half who was 4th choice in the World Cup in 2011, when they won it, and basically I think he'd been on the piss for 4 weeks and ended up playing in the final anyway. And I don't know if anyone remembers, his jersey was basically that high up, his nipples hanging out the bottom. So they posted a picture of him and Owen Farrell, because Owen Farrell's shirt rides high. He's got a little bit of a bum bag at the bottom hanging out as well. So the question was, who wore it better? Now, in my opinion, Stephen McDonald wore that jersey whilst winning a World Cup in that state. So hands down, for me, he wins that. Owen Farrell, I mean, he's in all right shape. He's in all right shape for a 10. He's obviously in better shape than McDonald was in the World Cup final. But anyway, I thought that was quite funny. Rugby Means posted that. Of course, it was the final week of the Saracens players and all eyes were on Alex Good. What's he going to go? He's going to go full kit wanker again. Is the bum bag coming out? No. The myth, the legend that is Alex Good, dressed up on day 2, it might have been day 1, but I only saw him on day 2 as a nun, with the bum bag in tow and with lipstick on. Now, we're in a world that you can do what you want, you can express who you want to be, how you want to be. So Alex Good, the myth, the legend, has rocked up again. And Alex Lazowski posted on his Instagram story, and this time I took a snap of it. Because normally I don't, I just like let them go and then I forget them and then I try and find some funny pictures or whatever to do the Don't Mess With Jim show and they're lost. Not this time. I've snapped a picture, it's already circulated out there. So Alex Good and Alex Lazowski, that's a good post. What is my social media post of the week though? Here we go, it's a good one. A lot of people think I don't like this guy. A lot of people think he doesn't like me. Joe Marler. A little bit old news because it's a week ago now, just over a week ago potentially when this goes out. But the interview that he did, not after the game, actually before the game, playing for the Barbars, and I saw it on social media, I saw it on Twitter, obviously the Barbarians have done, just talked about what it means to play for the Barbars and the real reasons why I think all of us played the game and picked up a rugby ball, you know, playing with your mates, having a beer after. And I think the way that the game's gone now, how professional it is, social media, the money that's come into the game, less accessibility between the superstar players and the fans, that we've probably got lost a little bit over the last couple of years. And there was question marks over the Barbarians. You know, I played in 2013 against the Lions. We've got 50 points put on us, having been out on the piss for 2 weeks. And there was question marks after that whether it was sustainable in this professional era. And for me, of someone like Joe Marler to come out and say the importance of the Barbarians and how much the jersey meant to him and how much fun he had in the week, I think it's huge. I think it's huge for rugby. I love what the Barbarians stand for. We obviously lost Mickey Steele-Bodger, who was the front man for the Barbars for the last 250 years. So for me, the social media post of the week has to go to the Barbarians and Joe Marler for keeping the Barbarians' dream alive. And that's it. We're done. Oh, are we going to be back? That is the question. The World Cup is coming up. I'm hoping to give a preview of the World Cup. It's not really a Da Vinci Code, but we'll maybe talk about the teams, the pools, the players to watch out for. But that's Don't Mess With Jim, episode 6. We're in Edinburgh.